Welcome to our home and my morning routine. I'll start by saying it doesn't look like I'm wearing any pants, but I promise I am. I did want this to be realistic though, so this is what I slept in: my husband's shirt and some sports shorts. My husband and I get up very early. We like to get up between 5 and 5:15 for me. I'm 5:15 and I will say I'm not a morning person. Getting up early has become a habit. I don't really struggle with it anymore, but I have never been a morning person. So if you are someone who really struggles to get up, know that I was someone who struggled to get up. It took me about a week getting up at 5 o'clock every single morning that it became very natural. My body got used to it and it was so much easier. Since January, my husband and I have been getting up around 5 o'clock and we have been doing our Bible time. I guess by the time that he showers and I lay out our books, it's about 5:30. So around 5:30, we do Bible time together and it has been so fruitful in our marriage. We did used to do stuff right after the kids went to bed, like immediately after, because if we started to work on projects or sit on the couch and talk, we just wouldn't get things done. But we decided that instead of doing it at night when we're tired and our energy levels just weren't there, that we would get up and do it in the morning together, and it sets the tone for our day. If you and your husband or you and your wife can do this in the morning, it can be very transforming to your marriage. So while my husband is showering, I get the coffee ready, I lay it out. So what we do is we go through the Word on Fire Bible, we do a chapter of a book a day, and then the next day we go through the Great Adventure Bible, the same chapter, same verses, but in two different translations, and then we talk about it. After we've discussed the Bible chapter, we go ahead and do a Bible study together. We have been doing the ones from ascensionpress.com. And no, this is not sponsored. We pay for them all on our own. But I would definitely work with Ascension if they would be willing. We actually just finished the course, a biblical walkthrough of the Mass, and it was so good. It was so good. I actually listened to a couple days ago the new episode of Trent Horn's podcast, The Council of Trent. He had on a couple of Protestant pastors who were asking him common questions that Protestants have with Catholicism. And I thought it was so good. I keep saying so good, but it was very enlightening. He has such a knowledge of the Bible and the Catholic faith. And I thought what the Protestant pastors said was good. I thought that their questions were good. And it really helped me personally to understand the Catholic faith in a deeper and more profound way. And my husband and I decided that we're actually going to be listening to it again together. So how our morning usually goes is my husband gets up at 5, he jumps in the shower, and I roll out of bed around 5:15. I was up earlier this morning because my son Judah was up at 4:40, and by the time I got done rocking him back to sleep, there was no point of trying to go back to sleep. So I come downstairs, start the coffee, get our Bibles ready, our little note cards so that we can write each other daily notes. After our Bible time, my husband leaves at roughly 6:30, and from 6:30 till about 8 o'clock, I try to work on editing YouTube videos, writing blog posts, and trying to get some of that work done in the morning before my kids come down at 7. So from 7 to 8, while I'm working on things, I have my older two usually. Sometimes I have my 2-year-old, but they typically get up, my 2-year-old and then my 1-year-old typically get up around 8. So that is when I start making breakfast. I do things like clean out the dishwasher, I clean up the kitchen. I will use that time to put away laundry and kind of get the house ready for the day. To be honest with you, I don't usually reset the house the night before. At the end of the day, I just want to spend time with my husband. So when their kids are eating, I tend to tidy up things, get it ready, set out stuff for homeschool, and then we'll either start chores or just do Homeschool, I really kind of just go with the flow. I have a tentative schedule, but I tend to be a very flexible person and work with what my kids are doing. Hopefully, you have noticed already, or you will notice that I am always surrounded by my children. A lot of times, the things I am able to get done really depend on who needs me when and for how long. And I get a lot of questions about makeup, which honestly, if you've watched my videos, I rarely do. If anything, I do a little bit of lipstick and mascara, but I honestly don't put on makeup 99% of the time. My hair, as you can see, is just thrown into a sloppy bun. And honestly, lately, I have just been so annoyed of my hair being down. So it is just always thrown up. I usually end up putting a clip in it. I finally bought new clips that are for long, thick hair because the clip that I had, my hair would just keep falling and falling. And so I feel like I would honestly be lying to you if I had any advice on hair or makeup. And if you didn't know, in my past life, it's not really a past life, but when I was younger, I was a makeup artist. I was actually an esthetician. And so I did eyelash extensions, facials, waxing, peels, the whole nine. So I actually have a love of skincare, and I had a super strong love of makeup, just the fun artistry aspect to it, doing wedding makeup, prom makeup. It was really fun. But now I really don't have that passion anymore. And so in the mornings, I just throw on some skincare, sometimes do mascara and lipstick. But otherwise, I focus more on a cute dress and simply feeling put together in that way. Sometimes I have to remind myself of a few Bible verses when I'm feeling insecure, when I'm feeling like I'm needing makeup or to look a little bit more of this world. I remember Psalm 139:14, of course. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. And I also think about Romans 12:1 that says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. If you haven't done this before, definitely look them up in your own personal Bible. Sit and reflect on what God is telling you through them, because it is one thing to say, oh, God makes wonderful things. His works are so wonderful. But to truly believe it, and we especially as women, struggle with this when we look in the mirror and look at ourselves. So this is my encouragement to you. You are wonderfully made. God doesn't make mistakes. He made you exactly how He wanted you to, exactly how He wanted you to look. Now we just need to tell our souls that we know it well. For breakfast, I am just reheating an egg, sausage, potato mixture that I had already made the previous day for breakfast and making homemade pancakes. I will have this pancake recipe linked down below. I did half regular unbleached all purpose and half whole wheat flour. I also do oat flour for my daughter who has celiac. First Corinthians 10:31 says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do everything for the glory of God." As homemakers, it's so important for us to remember that all of the tasks that we want to avoid doing or get tired of doing, the dishes, laundry, making food, cleaning the kitchen 3 times a day, playing with our children, we are doing those things to glorify God, for the glory of God. Revelation 4:11 reminds us, it says, "You are worthy, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created." God created us. He created us in the vocation of homemaking, and He asked that we would care for our family, that we would care for our husband, to submit to Him, and to care for our children. So through your morning, through your afternoon, when you are starting to feel overwhelmed, when you are starting to feel tired and worn out, stretched too thin, when your kids are crying, when your cooking and your baking isn't turning out, when you feel like you don't have anything left in you, remind yourself of this verse. For God created all things, and by His will, by God's will, you exist. By God's will, you were created. You were created for your family specifically. You were created to serve Him in the place that you are at right now, even if it's not the place you want to be. And that could be an emotional place, a physical place, a spiritual place. God has you here. Trust Him, turn to Him, and let Him guide you throughout your day. As you see, there is nothing super special about my morning routine. There's nothing that I do that is, wow, amazing or revolutionary. I am just simply serving my children. I am serving my family. Do I want to clean up crumbs all over the kitchen table and the floor constantly? Do I want my flowers ripped apart by a 1-year-old? Do I always want to put away loads and loads of laundry? The answer is no. No, I don't. Sometimes when I'm in a groove, I get going and I don't mind it. I love doing chores. I love picking up, and I love being organized. But there are some days, some moments when I feel like I just can't go on anymore. If I see one more pair of socks that need put together, if I see one more towel that needs folded, I will go insane. But what I want to do is serve God. I want to do His will, and I want to be God honoring as I do it. I try to do these tasks selflessly. I try to hand over my complaints to God, tell Him how I'm feeling, tell Him that I don't want to do it. I don't feel like I have the strength to go on, and I give it to Him. So whatever you do, do in a God honoring way. One thing that has helped me is I have placed all of my children's clothes, except Judah, who's my 1-year-old. His is still upstairs. But my other 3 kids have 4 baskets and each have a little cubby that I have placed their clothes. Now, this is the clothes that they have. They have some hanging clothes, as you saw, and then clothes in their baskets, and that is it. I try to keep it very minimal. I have this in the hallway right across from the bathroom, and it is just so much easier trying to put away clothes, getting them dressed, getting them changed right out of baths when all of their clothes are in one spot. Good. Yeah, good. After breakfast, I clean up the table, clean up the kitchen, sweep the floor. I usually start a load of laundry. I make sure all of the dishes are either washed or put in the dishwasher. Then we tidy up a little bit. This could include picking up toys. I put away laundry that was out from the day before. And then we typically do our chores, so checking on the pigs and the chickens, and then starting homeschool. So for homeschool, we homeschool for about an hour, hour and a half, and then we do a break time where I play my children's games. So throughout the day, usually in the morning, lunch, and then after the very last part of school, I will play 15 minutes of each of my children's games. So we set a timer on Alexa. I give them 100% of my attention and myself in the game, even when I don't want to. When you are not feeling like getting on your hands and knees and playing with your children, remember Psalm 127, verse 3. It says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward." Chin it. And spin it. Did you show me 4:30?
Yeah.
4. So where should your minute hand be? So our hour hand should be at 4. And where should our minute hand be to be at 30? Ready? Spin it. Spin it. Woo! You got it. Good job. Woo! So we have 2 groups of 10 to make 20, right? Because does this make 20? No. Okay, so you have 21. Yeah! Fine. All right. This is where I'm tricky tricksters. How our schedule typically goes is after breakfast, we do handwriting and language arts, so that includes their reading and their grammar. Then we do math, take a break, have our playtime, come back, we do religion, literature, poetry, and practice their Bible memory verses. And then I make lunch while the kids are doing free play. So this could include them reading, going outside and playing with toys. We don't do screen time except on Tuesdays. They get to pick a movie at the library. Each of the kids pick out a DVD and they get to watch them on Tuesdays. They rotate whose movie gets played. And during that time, I typically do the voiceover for my video, finish editing my blog posts, and create my emails, whatever I can get done in about that hour and a half. Before I work on these things and before the kids are able to earn their movie, they have to have finished their school. So we do geography, history, nature study, art, music, social skills, life skills, all of those subjects in the afternoon typically. I try to do the core things at the beginning of the day because if the end of the day starts to go downhill or we start to have behavioral issues, the toddlers need more attention, I can have the core subjects done. For religion, currently, I am using the Great Adventure Bible from Ascension Press. Oh my gosh, I mentioned them earlier. This is not sponsored, I promise, but this is a curriculum that my mom got them for Christmas. I believe that they have 2 Bibles that go with it, more of a little kid Bible, early reader, toddler Bible, and then more of your upper elementary, middle school Bible, and that is the Bible that we are using with it. I'm also using the Catechism, Into the Deep, among other things, but in those clips, that is just what is shown, just in case you are wondering. Here, I am just adding some parsley to my basil. I actually have a whole herb garden on my patio, and I did show that in a previous video of me putting that together, and I use that all the time, honestly, but I tend to use these 2 herbs the most, so I just have them up on my windowsill, beautifully displayed in this pretty pot that just goes with the theme of my kitchen. That is primarily what I do in the morning. In the afternoon, I tend to get more of my chores done, cleaning the bathrooms, mopping the floor, doing things for YouTube, answering emails, trying to answer emails anyway, cleaning, vacuuming. I really focus heavily on homeschool and doing things with my children in the morning and doing more of the housework in the afternoon, prepping for supper, trying to get things ready for when my husband comes. But one of the things I love to do in the morning is make bread. A lot of times I forget until about 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and I will still make bread at that time. But it is nice in the morning when I can remember and have the bread done for around afternoon snack time. So for this recipe, I'm actually going to be doing an artisan loaf. I am doing half whole wheat, half unbleached all-purpose flour. So for this recipe, I am taking 3/4 cup of warm water, adding 1 teaspoon of sugar to it, and 2.5 teaspoons of yeast. I stir that up together with a fork. I allow it to sit in this measuring cup for about 5 minutes. It will become really bubbly. And while I'm waiting for the yeast to activate, I add 1 egg and 1 egg white into my mixing bowl. Save the yolk. You are going to be using that for the egg wash later. I actually didn't use it for this loaf because it's an artisan loaf, but normally for sandwich bread or rolls or buns, I always put an egg wash on top. So as of now, in your mixing bowl, you should have an egg and egg white. The egg yolk just placed back in the fridge until you need it. You're going to be adding about 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup sugar, 1/2 cup oil, and then your yeast mixture. I just used the same fork that I used to whisk the water, sugar, and yeast together. I give that a quick mix before adding in my flour. Now for flour, you always want to start with less and slowly work your way up. You don't want to add too much flour because your dough will become very, very hard to work with. And especially if you are new or a beginner at making bread, it can be really hard to get your dough back to a nice dough if you have added too much flour. So a goal to have is to have your dough be sticky where your fingers can feel the stick. But when you pull your fingers off of the dough doesn't come with your fingers. You can still peel your fingers off, but the dough remains sticky. I like to let mine mix for at least 15 minutes in my stand mixer until everything is perfectly smooth. I find that when using whole wheat flour, you're not going to get as high of a rise, and your dough isn't going to be as smoothly sticky as if you were using all purpose. So when you saw my fingers touching the dough, none of it really stuck to the dough at all, but typically I have a little bit of dough stick. So if you have a little bit of dough stick to your fingers, that is great. You just want to make sure that your fingers aren't caught in the dough, that when you pull it off, the dough doesn't just come with your fingers. Hopefully that makes sense. For this recipe, I did 2.5 cups of unbleached all-purpose and 1 cup of whole wheat. I just shape it into a ball, place it back into the stand mixing bowl, and allow it to rise for 1 to 2 hours. I wait until it is doubled in size. I'm just taking it out, reshaping it, and placing it in a Banneton basket. Again, I will let it rise for about an hour. Check on it. Once it's reached the top, I will preheat the oven to 425. Put the Dutch oven in the preheating oven. While that is preheating, I will just take my dough, score it. I am not good at scoring dough. Honestly, most of the time I don't do it because I feel like it flattens my dough. I don't feel like it ever looks that great. So sometimes I will just take my dough straight from the Banneton onto the parchment paper and right into the Dutch oven and then bake it for 25 minutes. And that is pretty much what I get done in a morning, my typical morning routine. I wanted to leave you with a verse from John chapter 13, verses 34 and 35. It says, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. By this, all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." Remember, when your days are hard, when they feel long, when they feel overwhelming, when you feel like you can't care for your house anymore, when you feel like you have too many things to do, where there's just not enough time, where you feel like you're failing, when you feel like you don't have a purpose, that everything you are doing is a waste. Always remember this. You are serving God because you are serving your family. You are serving others. That is what we are called to do as homemakers. Jesus is telling us to love one another. And how do we love? Through our words and our actions. And we have the power to do it right here at home. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Kelsey, and I make biblically encouraging videos for the vocation of homemaking.